This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you for reminding me. At this particular point, we have called the meeting to order and we have approved the agenda. We are at item number 5, which is approval of the Public Works Committee meetings from July 6th. We've got a motion from Stan Malagranda and a second from Jeremy. So does anybody have seen any errors, corrections, omissions, or anything on those?
I did not.
No.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any public comment? I was not notified anything. I don't see any unknown people on there, so none there. So first item on the open business, IGA amendment number 2. Ed?
Yeah, I just realized coming into the meeting that we didn't get this attached for those of you that have email. So I've just sent it to several people. Long story short, the district has stated over the years as we've worked along the financial side of things with our payback and our financial responsibilities under the IGA, they basically have amortized it as we've discussed and put it in writing. So it's revisiting an old topic. Again, the email went to Frank Eubank, village president, and was distributed to Mike and myself, and I had it put on the agenda, and I regret I did not realize Kelly didn't have it, and I did not ask her to attach it to the meeting. So we'll definitely have it for the full board meeting. I'll send it out to her. And there's 2 parts to this amendment. Currently, there will be some discussion. First of all, the first part, again, is a recap of our financial responsibility as we discussed and agreed to during the IGA. Certain interest rates were finalized and things like that. And first payments were finalized, and they're just outlined in this amendment. So it's basically just putting in print things that have happened over the course, and there's no reason for alarm. It's expected and everything like that.
So really, this is just a reaffirmation of a lot of informal things that have taken place that we are now formalizing.
Yes, part 1 is, again, strictly the financials.
Is there anything in here that caught you by surprise?
Well, there's 2 things that there was an error in the original IGA, mislabeling of certain buildings, because there's a lot of buildings at the public works yard and the old sewage plant yard. There was certain buildings that would remain village, certain buildings that were going to be kicked over to the district. And during the course of our IGA and our workings, there were a couple that one was set for demolition, and we requested it not be demolished and would like to retain it for cold storage. And the second one was mislabeled. The amendment essentially calls out those 2 buildings as we have them in an exhibit with building numbers and says that that's okay, that we'll keep one and the other one won't be demolished and they'll revert to our ownership. So that's item 2 on this exhibit or amendment. The third item, the district is wishing for a different access area to the property, and they're also wishing to acquire another approximate 2.5 acres of our roughly 6-acre total. And I can read it if you like.
For those that are looking on the computer, I just brought the letter up on the screen.
Yeah, I don't know if Stan has access, but I sent it, I believe, to Mary, Chris. Did Jeremy get it?
I did get it, yes.
Go
Okay,
ahead. Even though it's up there, Chad, go ahead and state what you were going to state on it.
so the item 3 of this amendment is the original IGA provided ingress, egress easement to the district for access to its pump station. While that easement should remain, it is not the ideal access point for the district for a number of reasons. We believe it is in both parties' interest for the district to own the southern and western edge of the village's public works parcel for the purpose of access to its pump station parcel. The district would only use the village's northeast entrance in emergency situations. A depiction of the parcel to be transferred and the access road is attached here to as Exhibit A. If the village has no objection to the above, the district will prepare a draft amendment number 2 to the IGA for the village's review and approval. Of course, the district would welcome a discussion with the village about amending the IGA. So quick snapshot. In the original IGA, if everybody's aware of where we access our public works yard, it's at the dead end of West Soper Street, just past the Lighted Diamond. In the original IGA, the district and the village together installed an access gate. Our access that we utilized to the pump station and the sewer plant was an access drive. Soper Street proper does have a right of way, but it goes through a ravine and a ditch and everything, so it wouldn't be practical to build out the roadway there. So we essentially had given the district an access easement on our property, and the lane would remain the same. What would be happening at the close of this large construction of decommissioning the plant is the district would, in the future, would have to travel through our automated gate, and then they would have their own gate. And I believe they would like to not have to go through what will become our automated gate, because we would, of course, ask for shared maintenance and cost and everything. So they'd like to go the other way, which there's really no large problem with, other than the fact that we would lose some real estate for our future. On one hand, that's okay. We don't probably need all 6 acres. I think they're probably planning to do what you call pipe laydown yard, an area to have some of their construction materials and a construction yard. And then secondly, they would have a better access and not have to go through our working area to get to their access. So shooting from the hip, I would expect that what we should do is request either a monetary value for that 2.5 acres, or B, payment in kind, i.e. they would either construct West Winnebago Street to the limit, or one of the other things that happened through the IGA that we've talked about loosely was during the decommissioning of the plant, our power was abated to our cold storage buildings and used to be operational buildings. The IGA and the intent was that we would just have to install our own meter, being as there's new people at the district. They didn't feel that was the intent, so we're without power in some of our remote buildings that always had power. So I think that we need to discuss this as a committee or a board and either say, A, yes, we'll sell you these 2.5 acres for a realistic rate, or B, we would deed them over in consideration of payment in kind of one of the things I have mentioned. Either A, they complete our electrical service upgrade so that we get electricity back to those buildings, or B, they officially extend West Winnebago Street as a street. that would be very costly, and they just want to use it as an access. So I do believe we need further conversation on this and discussion, but I'd be open for the members of the committee to give me some feedback. Whereas we could request a meeting, a Zoom meeting or something of the like, and we could have them just pitch us their offer. B, we could simply bring this amendment to the board, and the full board could accept or reject it at this time. Or C, we could present what our request is, I believe.
Is there anything in the first section that's time sensitive that requires this be approved at the next board meeting, or do we have a little bit of time?
No, essentially, I think in the first section, the only biggie is our cash payment that we're looking to do in December of 2021. So the only issue that we've had is it was not directly outlined about that future cost and its interest rate in the original IGA. This amendment addresses it per the village's wishes with a reasonable terms. So we wouldn't want to lose that. I don't think we will. I don't think there's really any issue. I really think all we need to do is conference ourselves at this point and see what direction the village would like to go, and follow it up either with a meeting or you know, I don't know if rebuttal is the right word, or a request of the district and a change of the verbiage for that third section. But they do not call anything out time sensitive.
Well, I guess what I would recommend is, you know better than the rest of us of what would benefit the village public works. I would like to propose that maybe you kind of outline, you know, your most highly desired offset. And then, Mary, is there any easy way to try to figure out what the value of that property would be?
Well, we would at least maybe want to get a market analysis if we don't get a full appraisal. Up to the village what they want to do. We can certainly get a realtor to get some sort of market analysis, and we wouldn't have to pay for that.
And I believe, I didn't get a chance to look it up, but I believe in Amendment 1 is when we deeded them 1 acre, where they originally weren't going to get an acre. We've already given them 1 acre for, I believe it was $1. And I don't remember if we got any real estate assessment or anything like that.
I don't think we did at that time.
I don't think so either. And of course, the village being on tight budget constraints and things like that, the district's obviously not as tight as us. My wish or what have you would be that either myself or Frank and Mary and myself, we would just be allowed to converse at first with the district and say, hey, we understand you want us 2.5 acres. Were you thinking that it had a price point? Do you have something to back it up? And if so, we'd like to include that. And of course, if they're thinking free, then we got to go these other routes. And there are a couple other things that have to be considered. One, what their plans are on that far south border is an existing West Winnebago Street right of way. And, you know, the church down there by the T-ball field, when they developed, they did have to extend water main, but they only extended it to their easterly property line. So, you know, is the district considering building that as a roadway? Are we going to allow it as an access drive? The way they have it drawn, we believe it's, you know, it remains forever a right of way, but we're kind of in that loose area of, are they a development Is it a roadway extension? Are we just doing a lane? It's a little more technical if we choose to be, and we maybe should be.
Well, I would agree with you. I think we need to have more definition of what their ultimate intent is before, we grant them the property and then we don't like at all what it is that they're intending to do with. We're kind of got the, cart in front of the horse.
Yeah.
So I think we do need to understand, obviously with where that property is at, it's hard to know, at what point it's even useful once you filled in that lagoon. How long a period of time is, before that's got to settle in and refill and settle and, ultimately what are they doing? But I would think if there's some opportunity to get some offsets or something in there that would significantly benefit us while at the same time understanding where this thing is in the long term rather than, a couple steps at a time and then realize we went down the wrong path.
Right. And that's, I agree and concur wholeheartedly. I'm not at all opposed to allowing the sale of some more properties so they can get some useful utility ground and things like that. But we need to do what's right for the village. And, looking at our master plan, there's several things in the wings of how we would grow ourselves to the west. We wouldn't want to be landlocked and having to rebuy property back so that we could get to, say, if the field to the west wanted to develop, well, West Winnebago Street should be allowed to extend on. And again, I think they have a lot of resources. I think we should let them use the resources and they can do the legwork of spending any monies and appraisal fees or attorney fees on the upfront, and we can review from there. So I would just at this time just ask permission from the committee, or if the committee chose collectively to have one of you represent the committee with myself, that we just open the discussion. And it's hard to have meetings and everything, but perhaps we could just schedule a meeting to talk with the folks at the district and say, okay, first two make sense. The last one here, we're not opposed, but we need a little more, and here's why.
Well, I think that would be appropriate, and probably at least at the committee level, and then get confirmation at the board, because again, ultimately, if there's an asset at stake or whatever, I think we need to, at least bring the board on, make sure they're in line with that. But anybody else have any contrary thoughts or concur with that? Or
I thought it sounded like a good idea. If we don't need it, then we can look into getting rid of it. But if they're willing to offer something, that's definitely the way we want to go.
So would you be willing to entertain a motion to get board approval to have an informal meeting with the district to try to wash out the what their expectations are, and so get Chad, possibly myself, whatever, to partake in that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I got Jeremy on the motion, Stan on the second, to confirm board approval for a meeting with the district to try to, get some little bit more definition on this project. Anybody have any other questions or comments? All in favor?
No.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Chad, you and I, later down, I'm going to try to get some time on your calendar. Maybe if we hit this thing right or whatever, if Frank is going to be at the village or whatever on Wednesday or something, maybe we can tie in a few minutes with him and get some of this preliminary stuff in advance of the board meeting.
That sounds good.
Okay, so item number 7 is an action item. Okay, spending approval for equipment.
Just kind of highlighting that we did have a couple vehicles up for upgrade. We've had to spend a fair amount of money. Not going to ask for action tonight. We really understand that we've got to see how the budget's shaken out, but we would possibly be looking at September when we get a better handle on where things are, looking to upgrade one of the depreciation trucks for sure this year. So I thought that I would get a chance to get some numbers together to throw it out in front of you. I was not able to get that. so we can just move on.
Which vehicle are you considering?
That would be the 2011 F-350 one-ton dump truck. That's our little dump truck.
Okay, so we'll defer that to September, and that gives you time to do some background on it further along to get us better feeling on the budget. So. Any updates that you've heard on the is that right? That should be DECO, shouldn't it? DECO?
I think this is right.
Think that's right? Okay.
Yeah, it's, the last.
Yeah, that's
year.
for Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity.
Yeah.
Okay. I know I got dyslexia. So anybody hear any updates or anything on that?
Seth had sent an email that everything had moved appropriately at the appropriate times and it was in the appropriate hands. And we would expect September, October to start hearing about who is receiving some of those monies.
Okay. Sally, we got to get our signals updated or whatever. Get you and Vance on our construction funding report. But is there anything lurking out there that you're aware of that you need any questions answered on?
I emailed it to all the committee members, Chad and Jimmy, before I entered the meeting. Sorry about that.
That's quite all right.
Nothing unexpected on there. Of course, the civil payment is on there and some engineering that we were expecting. Everything else is caught up. Sullivan's, I've been getting those timely, and we're looking good in that front. Under the ComEd utility tax there, it looks like we're in a good position for our Elida Road project sometime in the future.
Okay, I never really have a chance to take a peek at that between now and the board meeting, but thank you. Well, like I said, we're still getting adjusted to this remote meeting or whatever, but it's not terrible. I mean, it's functional once we get in the groove. So. Any update on your SCADA, Chad?
Yeah, I'm talking with the guys from Strand about weekly. Some of the software work is still happening. Our hardware, evidently, it didn't get ordered. The credit card must not have been accepted. We went through the motions and I thought he had it. He thought I had it. So we're going to reroute the ordering of the actual desktop computer. That's been a nuisance for anybody that's had to order a computer, but we're still working at it diligently, slowly.
Yeah, it's hard to find certain things lately. I've been working on 2 or 3 things that are relatively minor that should be easy into the 4th month now.
Yeah, well, it's exactly the same. We found a much better price for a similar unit through our state bid or our government contract. Kelly helped me with that, CDW. But then Strand only works directly with Dell. And then certain lingo wasn't met in the spec sheet, and the CDW people wouldn't get back to Strand, and then the Dell people resubmitted and said that the CDW equipment, although it carried the same part number, didn't have the same components. So it's just been wonderful. So we're gonna get after it and get the right one coming.
Okay, how about your water meters?
Water meters is happening at a much more rapid pace right now. The equipment is all ordered. The training is set to happen the last quarter of this month, right before meter reading, so it's fresh in everybody's mind. The new laptop is coming. The Beacon software is installed. Some of the test runs have shown that's all good to go. The training's going to happen. We're set to try to switch over at the end of August, and then just let everybody know, just expect 2 or 3 months of hiccups and little blurps that we'll have to work through. These never go perfectly seamless, but I will say we had about an hour and a half pre-training exercise where we went through and we were able to clean up some dirty software things that helped carry quite a bit. And there was a little learning curve there that improved our current situation, but it's not coming a minute too soon is what I need to say. Every month with meter reading, we're getting more and more dead or dying registers. And then to please the committee, I want to share with you that our old style of meters, the computer or the photo eye actually reads the numbers. It reads the numbers on the dial. And as these numbers are getting worn out, we're getting 1, 2, or 3 a month that the reading is very much construed or misconstrued. So like a 3 is becoming an 8. So somebody's average usage is getting blown out of proportion. Carrie's flagging them, we're checking them. We did start going into homes because we had a pretty decent amount of work orders. We went into 3, 4, 5 homes this month. I expect we'll go into a dozen homes before the end of the month because we're going to change over to cellular readers on any of our existing inventory that are causing problems. So Carrie's got that backlog documented, but I will say it's growing. It's going up by baby steps every month, and got a bad feeling that we're probably going to get even more as the months progress here. Again, our game plan was to get the software, get the hardware, and then through attrition, start changing out the meters and maybe order a max of 50 new toppers. And I'm guessing that 2021 budget, we're probably going to budget for 500 radio or cellular reads to be prepared to change more rapidly and to address the age outs as we're seeing them.
Oh, good. I mean, not good in the amount of activity, but good in the fact that we did it and didn't defer any longer. Otherwise, we could have really had a headache on our hands.
Yeah, that's the point I was trying to get to.
Okay, Runyard Street.
Okay, so to share with the committee, the school project with the track is nearing completion. Unfortunately, with the heavy construction that happened up there and the choice of the general contractor to do all of their work in and off of Runyard Street, the road edge suffered. There's documentation of pictures and before and after that there's some damage there. We've been speaking with the contractor, asking them to make it right, and gave them kind of their chance they were supposed to give me final concession today. I did not get a respond to phone calls or emails. I did meet with them in person on Friday, and we walked and measured. And during the discussion, we all know that the road wasn't new when they got there, and they asked if we would be willing to spend a little money to overlay the half of the road or the whole road versus the 4 to 6 feet that they damaged. And I said, well, I'll need numbers before this meeting so I could give them an answer. Unfortunately, I didn't get the numbers or responses to phone calls or emails today. So I don't have anything to present, but to satisfy the board, we will be requiring either the contractor or the school will have to do repairs on that roadway. And B, if they give us amicable numbers to go a little further, and if our budget can absorb it, we may wish to do a little work in there to have a better end product. That being said, I don't think our budget could afford more than $6,000 to $8,000. That would be the low end of a contribution to overlay the entire street. Jimmy and I measured it based off of some of our past prices. Retail cost to overlay that street is probably between $18,000 and $20,000. The amount of damages, retail cost is probably $6,000 to $8,000. So I don't know that we could get the whole road overlaid if we were willing to contribute $6,000 to $8,000. It's just consideration. We put the ball in their court to see what they felt they could do. We have a hard line that we basically said 450 feet, 6 feet wide needs to be repaired. Doing a repair like that sometimes takes a little more man hours than just doing an overlay. So we loosely discussed it without discussing numbers, and we said, you know, we wouldn't be inherently opposed to them making a request and saying that they would overlay the whole street if we contributed cost of asphalt. But again, I didn't get the numbers today or a response to phone call or email, so I don't have anything to put in front of you. And I may ask to bring it back to the full board if this committee thinks that's reasonable.
Well, certainly I mean, had they not made any damage to that, what was your projection of best estimate when we might have been going in there anyways?
Well, I will say that when we put the water main in that road several years ago, some 7 years ago, I think, the road wasn't great. It's a rural road. We didn't damage it, but it did receive stress. We would look at it. You know, our assumption is that the Elida Street project will have a unit price that's favorable. And if that price was favorable enough, we would have tried to tie it in. We would have tried to overlay Runyon Street to the east, to the curve where the Park District entrance is, where it becomes Church Street. It gets a lot of school bus traffic, a lot of heavy traffic for regular school in and out, and games and football games and Park District events. So we would have looked at, you know, when we get favorable unit prices and we try to stretch that money out, we would have looked at 1.5 inch overlay on that street next year with the Elida Street project. Again, I don't think you'll get it done for a retail price for less than $18,000 for that footage. It may be some pretty wild speculation to think that Civil would come back, and I think that they have a good reputation that if we were able to split it, possibly we would get it overlaid this year. It would stretch our budget to the end, and I don't know that they're willing to do their part. We, of course, we can't obligate them to do more than they damaged, and it's just.
Yeah, it was nice to be able to leverage that if we were in a position to do it. And I guess if we would have known that then now, we would have probably waited on the other road project and get it all done.
We didn't expect the damage to happen the way it did. And it is a public road. They have the right to travel it, but they did park trucks on the edge. I called and told them they were creating themselves a problem. They said they would take care of it. But then, of course, when it came time to pay the piper, the argument. They had the photos from Google Earth from how it looked before, and it didn't look new. And well, it also wasn't busted away and busted off at the edges. So then you get in the part of you try to be very civil, and otherwise you're going to get 6 crappy patches that don't matter. So I was hoping for the best course scenario, but short notice it didn't happen. I don't have any numbers to present.
I guess I would recommend that, keep pursuing it throughout the week. We'll put this as an item of discussion on the board meeting, and whatever information you can come up with, we'll see how much more substance you can put together on it.
I will share with the committee. I will be going tomorrow. If I don't hear from them by 9 o'clock, I will be going to the school and asking them to make sure not to release a retainage, and that we would be looking to the school for satisfaction if for some reason civil didn't make it right.
That would be appropriate. So civil was the contractor on that?
Yes. And aside from that, it looks like they did a pretty good job. What their job was for the school.
Anybody else have a comment on that or a contrary opinion?
Would it be worth looking into for them just to give us X amount and we put it toward the cost next year, in which we're hoping to pull Runyard in anyway? Or would it be more cost effective to have them do the entire road now with a little bit of from us?
I think it's really a catch-22, because they're always more willing to do the work in kind, because they can write off the asphalt they make easier than they can write off a cash payment. But sometimes they just don't want the hassle. So we can ask them.
I guess the more important question first is, can we defer that repair, or is the damage going to continue to get worse, and then we're going to have a bigger problem a year from now than we have now?
What you're saying is correct, Mike, and I was going to follow up with that. If we did take the cash in lieu of repair, we would still have to repair it with the deferred maintenance style technique. It would be cold patch and temporary patching, and the road would further suffer. Correct.
So really comes down to one of two things. We hold them accountable for the repairs they need to make if we have no budget available, or B, if we can get some favorable deal and we can surface the budget, then we get it taken care of.
Correct.
And that's how we'll need to present it next week to the board meeting then.
Yeah.
Well.
So I would recommend that continue the path you're on and see what you can come up with, and we'll put that on there, and you and I can have a conversation towards the end of the week and see exactly where we stand, and we'll get everybody updated and plan accordingly.
Very good.
Mary, I know we got a hearing towards the end of August, so I assume there's nothing to update on Highlands?
Other than I did get confirmation from New Zealand's private process server that Dr. Tanner was served. He was served at Hawke's Bay Hospital in New Zealand. He did acknowledge that was him, and at first he would not take the papers. But after a little discussion, he did take the paperwork. I also got confirmation that the registered agent here in the States, Attorney Art Keelty, was served, but I purposely did not have him served till I knew that Dr. Tanner had been served. And I have in the last couple of days received an appearance of attorney by Attorney Art Keelty, showing that he's going to be representing Dr. Tanner in this situation.
Okay. Hey, progress. Oh, it took a long time. We're moving in the right direction.
And I did, just for the record, I did ask the private process server to see if he could find a home address, because I wasn't particularly fond of having anybody served at their place of employment, but apparently that wasn't able to be obtained. So that's why he was served at Hawke's Bay Hospital in the radiology department. It is also interesting that Attorney Art Keelty for months, of course, had told me he didn't know where Dr. Tanner was, but certainly found out pretty quickly.
Okay. Any other Rock River Water Reclamation District activity beyond what we spoke about under the amendment?
Pretty much just, they're still conducting the closure of the old wastewater treatment plant site. The demolition's ongoing. The sludge from the lagoon has been removed in its entirety. The lagoon is now filled. It's not the final grade, but it's no longer at all a wastewater operating parcel. And the progress continues. And if Mother Nature is kind to the contractor, I expect them to be finishing up by the 3rd or 4th week of this month, and it'll be really kind of final closure on Winnebago's wastewater lifespan.
Anything on Crossroads Church?
I'll just kind of defer this to Mary. There had been an ask, 1 or 2 email requests from one of the church members, Mr. Ben Bushman. I circulated Mary and had put the directive that the reduction of letter of credit or bond resolution would be in her hands. So I would defer to Mary on where that is.
I've received, we never received anything from them, and I guess I need to know how much you want me to be the driving force. We were the driving force before. They want to know about the recapture agreement. There already was a very, very detailed email that they have gotten that said what was the problem with their original recapture agreement. So again, you can let me know. I mean, I certainly can reach out to them again and explain all over again, but I think there comes a point of when does the financial responsibility get off of the village and onto Crossroads Church?
Yeah, that's a second topic. The first topic is, I do believe you handle the reduction in letter of credit.
What I do is I do the approval of the reduction of the letter of credit. What typically happens, or has happened in the past, is that the contractor will submit, it used to be years ago that it would go to Fair Graham, and then they changed it at a time when the village wanted to save money, and it went to Mr. Medeiros, and I think that that got to you, Chad, as the Public Works Director, or at least whoever was the Public Works Director at that time. And they would then look at the list and see if everything seemed copacetic. And then I would get something in writing from the village personnel to say, yes, we think this is okay to reduce this letter of credit. And then I would make a recommendation to the board, and then the board would make the formal approval to reduce that letter of credit. Then the bank or whatever other financial institution would require a letter from the village president on village letterhead that indicated that letter of credit could be reduced after the board had approved it. So I haven't gotten anything that says this is at least that I'm remembering, that anybody from the village has said to me, here are the items that they want reduced and we're fine with them. If I'm wrong, Chad, let me know, because there have been a lot of other things going on.
I guess it just, since the time lapse, I was under the impression that we had discussed it at a meeting that you would simply send them basically what you just said to me, that it was, the burden was theirs to present the document for the request and reduction letter of credit. I believe we talked about that meeting and you said you handle it. Of course, I would have to look through and check off and say they built the road, they put the curb, and they did all these things. From memory, it's been a while since we've had a development, but from memory, I believe there was a checklist that, and you're right, it's all on the contractor and the developer. These guys, of course, don't know how to get it done. I was of the impression that you were going to just send them a letter or email that said, you have to do what you just explained and send it to the village, and The village personnel would sign off, and then we would hand it off to you, and you would move forward as you just discussed. So.
Okay, I will do that. And if I misunderstood, then I apologize.
Well, I
Yeah,
think,
But I will take care of doing that.
Yeah, I didn't want to get in the middle, and I think one or two emails I said it would be deferred to you.
well, I think where the issue is, Chad, we did discuss this in July, and at that particular point, we hadn't really received anything from them. We said, well, we'll kind of sit and wait till we get the request. But based on what you're saying, as you've indicated, they really don't know what to request, and they're just kind of putting something out there again, which is putting the burden back on us to incur expense to tell them what it is that they're supposed to be doing.
Right, and I 100% agree with Mary, and that's where the frustration comes in, because we did tell them we're not going to help them with their recapture agreement. We did tons and tons of work, and at this point, we were not going to supply them with a recapture agreement, nor were we going to guarantee that there was going to be a recapture agreement. We simply had told them they could request a recapture agreement if it was warranted, and I think they don't really know what they've got going on. And you're right, Mike. I think in July I said, the work is done. I would expect they're going to request a reduction in their letter of credit. And again, it was a simple email. There's not been what I would call a real formal request. And I would assume that Ben Bushman just read board meeting minutes or something, because it came shortly after a board meeting that said, hey, where are we on our reduction in letter of credit and also recapture agreement? And I think I forwarded it to Mary and just said, Mary would be handling that, because I didn't want to get in the middle of it. So I think that at this point, we just stopgap it here and ask Mary to just send them a letter or email that says, we understand you request a reduction in your letter of credit. Here's what our UDO says you have to do. Please do that. Send it to the people that need to receive it, and then we'll process it.
Yeah, and Mary, I'd be quiet on the recapture agreement. That's a totally separate issue, because that's an easy one. It's like, well, you submit your formal request and we'll review it. But beyond there, I would say, yes, Chad, what simply do they need to provide to us? Is all they obligated to say is we fulfilled all the requirements and we want our line of credit, or what do they have to provide to us?
Well,
And that's spelled, Chad, sorry.
Well, that's actually Seth had given them an itemized engineer list for the things that are pertinent to the public works side and village right-of-way side. So typically what they do is just like what we do for our bid tabs for road construction and water main construction, is they show what quantities they did and what money they spent, and we don't give them more than they spent, obviously, but they just show that they really did meet our quantities. And again, going back in memory, there's typically a worksheet that the developer has to work off of. And let's just say arbitrarily 400 feet of water main, 12-inch water main, $20,000. So they show they did 410 feet. Well, then, yes, we would sign off. That's complete. And then there is, I haven't studied up on it, but typically there's a warranty period as well. So we don't release it at 100%. We retain, I believe, 10% until it's been in the ground a year, the road's been down a year, all of those things. Is that correct, Mary? Or is there a spot that we can decipher these things more clearly?
I believe we increased that to 15%. It was 10%, but I think it got increased to 15. And all of I guess what is frustrating is that all of these requirements are covered by village ordinances. So
Right.
To me, I'll do whatever the village wants. Obviously, I get paid for what I do, so that's not the issue. But is it fair? Do I just give them a copy of the ordinance and say, this is the section, this is what you need to do? I really don't know that it's our place to have to say number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. They should be bringing that to their attorney.
Yeah, I'm thinking what we need to do is, since you're probably the most adept at it, say, hey, here is the village ordinance, or here is the section of the UDO or whatever, here's a segment, section 2.7.2, here's the requirements that you need to do to proceed with us, rescinding or adjusting the line of credit. Then they can consult. They can consult with their own, attorneys and general counsel or whoever they happen to need to.
Well, and then you mentioned too about the recapture agreement. That was addressed in an email, as I recall, with them again saying, and hey, we're interested in this recapture agreement. So I can forward them the email. It was a very detailed email that I did to their attorney. That was in 2019, I believe, that basically said, you gave me something and it's deficient and this is why. So get us something better. And that's the last we heard.
Yeah.
In essence, they want us to draft it and that's just not appropriate.
No, I guess if you can spend a minimal amount of time to put the necessary documents back to their attention.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, I guess when you're the nice guys finish last, so they say sometimes.
It just sets a dangerous precedent if we really do that with everybody.
Absolutely. Any additional retention pond stuff, Chad?
No, we continue to get the new phone calls from the folks in Greenlee, claiming new problems. Not new problems. It rains, water goes in low spots. So we are getting still some citizenry complaints about retention ponds, drainage easements. We had one today. I think it's still status quo where you and I are going to get together and we're going to send out another mailer once we get the outline.
Yeah, since you were traveling the one week and I was the other, and I have now found my sidewalk ordinance stuff. Nice. So yeah, so like I say, you and I'll get offline after this meeting, and we'll spend a few minutes on that topic with, so, and we'll also pull the sidewalk one into there or whatever. So hopefully you and I can connect this week. Yeah, Wednesday looks good. Budget issues, we don't have enough money, we're spending too much. Any comments, Sally, that, or we'll just wait till your update next week?
Nothing to report. We have no money as usual.
I do have one concern. It may or may not be a concern. I've been talking with Kelly and been asking if she could, help with the payroll and keeping me abreast of where we are with things. From the outside looking in, I don't know if Carrie manages her hours differently, but I heard secondhand many times during all the building permits and the hail damage that she's had lots and lots of long weeks and long days. And I will say it's not a personal issue against the person, but my department has always stayed in check. And I don't want to get caught off guard later in the season if we have an absorbent overtime draw from that position, which is primarily funded from my department. So I don't know if we'll have to have a conversation later to see where the money's going to come from. And it may again be a non-issue. We work very hard in my department to manage hours. We got people on salary, and the way we work, Mike, and I don't want to come at the end of the budget year and all of a sudden be in a big red line for something I had no knowledge or control or wasn't even made aware of. But from outside looking in, it does appear as though maybe Carrie's working some serious overtime that A, I'm not aware of, B, I haven't been provided documentation. I know everybody's busy. I know COVID's a pain in the butt. Kelly and I have talked over the phone a couple times, and I've asked for some running count for all of my guys. Likewise, my summer help, my seasonal help. We try really hard to keep that all in check, but we don't know what we don't know. And it's just my own radar going off saying I see a prospective problem down the road, and I just guess I would ask this committee to be open-minded and consider how we're going to deal with it if it is an issue. Because some of the things I've heard is it's all due to permits. Well, I certainly hope the permit money is going to take care of the overtime and the absorbent amount of payroll if that is the case.
Well, that would be my comment on it. Obviously I'll make a note to take a look at the statements when we get them distributed later this week. But certainly, if that's where all the time has been caused by, and we do have extra revenue coming, I'm sure we would like to use that revenue in other places, but certainly the first place it should go to is where all the labor was chewed up. So I would expect it could be an opportunity for some sort of a line item transfer or something in there that should be the first place it came from. If that was the cause and we've got revenue offsetting that should fund that shortfall. Hopefully it's sufficient to do it.
I agree with everything Chad said and what you said, Mike. Carrie and I actually talked about this prior to all the hail damage permits because we really feel like that the way that her payroll is divvied up between the budgets, it might not be that way anymore, how she spends her time. So it has come up that maybe those percentages should be tweaked a little bit for the 2021 budget.
I would agree. And again, the way we've at least got it structured now, and hopefully we don't have a repeat of what we've had this year, but obviously, yeah, if that's a significant portion of her time and we've got a revenue source for it, that should be if it's a third of the job, that should be a third of the, in that case, we actually have a revenue line that can cover it. And the other portions from the police and the public works has got to come from a cost line. But yes, I would agree that that definitely needs to be done as the structure of the job changes. So
yes.
Any employee input beyond what's been discussed?
No.
Have you learned any more, Chad, on the hail damage?
That just is an everyday event. We're working on it very diligently. We're talking to the IML, and we did have Blaine Kurth down, and he did kick it in high gear and talk to a lot of people. I've been on the phone today and on Friday with some upper echelon people. We are getting a little more attention. I have a feeling we're going to get a lot more attention the rest of the week so that we can get our ancillary buildings resolved. Just to satisfy this committee, we did meet with Blaine Kurth, finding out that some of our buildings are assessed by Risk Management Association. Some are assessed by us, by our own people. And we straightened some of that out. We cleaned up. We had a couple of things underinsured, overinsured. We had some duplicate insured items between Kelly, Chief White, myself, and Jim Johnson last week. We had a socially distanced meeting with insurance, and we got a lot of things cleaned up, and we're going to get a lot more attention on our existing claims. We already had a lot more today. So I do think things are going to ramp up. Just for those that haven't been by the Village Hall, the wet drywall, those areas have been mitigated. Drywall's replaced. Prime coat's happening. We were supposed to have received quote today on the carpeting, and then the insurance would say whether they would or would not value the carpeting replacement due to the construction and the leaking on it. So we should know today or tomorrow on that. We may be coming to the board. If the carpeting isn't offered to be repaired under insurance, we will at least have a price. And due to a compromised price for that window and the door lock and things like that, there may be budget money for at least some of the carpet to get replaced up there as is due.
Did we proceed on a decision on the window and door lock access?
I'm glad you segued into that, Mike. I got quotes and I forwarded them to Kelly, and unfortunately it was late last week or Wednesday of last week, I think. I spoke with Frank and I asked that he would reach out to the board members because we really need to get this stuff ordered, but I'll take a quick second here. You and I spoke after the board meeting last month about a possible compromise or a better route. And when I got to work in the morning, Frank and Carrie had had this similar discussion, and they came up with a compromise of not doing a teller window outside because we have a vestibule, and putting something outside was going to restrict space. So Carrie, Kelly, and Frank all decided that keeping our vestibule and eliminating the slide glass and just going with a solid glass with a dip tray so that, you know, the currency can go under the glass and have a speaker in between, as well as
Door lock release.
a camera outside and the locking door. So kind of like we said, if we went with the teller tray inside, like what a bank has, and the people that install that can only get them prefab with bulletproof glass, that was about $6,500. And then the door entry was about $2,500 with audio, with a microphone and a camera and two-way speaking. That was $2,500, so it would have been about $9,000 to do that. The compromise, everybody in the office and Frank still wanted to go with the camera and the audio and the push button door entry. That's still $2,500, but another local contractor could do the dip tray, the harder glass, and speak through in lieu of the slider. That was not to exceed $2,000 installed. So we're right about $4,500 to do the repairs. Frank had Kelly send out an email to get a straw poll from the board because we really wanted to move forward and get ordered and get this all done so it could get done before final paint and carpet if we get it. So being as we have 3 of the trustees on here, I'd ask for you folks to either email that response. I know Julie O'Rourke did, and she was in favor of the nearly $4,500. So if these members would see fit, we would certainly ask you to respond if you haven't already.
It was sent on July 29th.
July 29th.
Like Wednesday of last week.
I must have missed that while I was traveling, so I'll take a peek at this stuff on there.
So again, the quick math is $9,500, or I'm sorry, about $9,000 gets you the door entry, the speaker phone in and out, and an audio visual that stays in the office. So Carrie can see who walks up to the door. She can push a button, let them in. That's $2,500. If you went bulletproof glass with a slide out drawer like a bank has, that's $6,500. So that's about $9,000. The preferred method was keep everything with the door like I just described, $2,500, but then tempered glass, speak through, and a big dip tray and an improved shelf so people have room to write a check. That was not to exceed $2,000, so $4,500 total cost in lieu of $9,000.
Okay, yeah, I've got the email here. I'll take a look at it after the meeting and then get a response to Kelly.
Yeah, appreciate that. If you members can do that. Kelly had said she was going to text everybody today so that we could get a feel, because we would really like to, because we got to order some of these components, and if we're doing it, we really need to get with it so that it ties in with the paint and the carpet.
And Sally, that should be covered under CARES, correct, for our reimbursement?
Yes, I was going to bring that up. We all feel like it fits the description of items that can be reimbursed from the CARES grant or whatever it's called. So that hopefully hopefully there are no issues with that. As it stands now, that's the plan.
Yeah, look, just reading it over and also attending the webinar on the CARES Act, I don't think that there'll be any problem with getting that reimbursed. We just need to keep appropriate records. And just while we're on that subject matter, Chad, I don't know if you've had the chance to talk to Kelly about that, but just be thinking if there's anything from a public works perspective that needed to be done because of COVID-19 that we would be able to get reimbursement for. As we've discussed before, this CARES Act is a federal government program where there was money allocated to the states, and then each municipality in Illinois was given a certain percentage, other than the Cook County and Will and DuPage got set amounts. But then they took the remainder and divvied it up amongst the municipalities. So the village is getting about, or can get about 127,000, something of that nature that I recall. Now, there are requirements for what you have to submit in order, and you have to have a justification. And the bottom line is that they're going to be checking to see what municipalities are using, because if you don't use it, then they're going to reallocate it at a certain point in time. And we don't anticipate we're going to be able to use all of that money. And the key thing is you have to spend it before you get it reimbursed. It's clearly a reimbursement. It's not like a grant allocation where you can do all of these things knowing the grant money is going to pay for it.
Okay, thank you for that portion of the update. So, okay, village attorney projects. I guess, Mary, the only thing we need to do in the short term is, obviously you're following the Highlands and that's there. And if you could just be so kind to get that quick, easy email out, and hopefully it truly is easy to Crossroads.
Well, and like I said, I'll copy you on it. I'll copy all of you on it, and you're going to see that some of it is just forwarding what they've gotten before, and then I'll give them the appropriate, with highlighting of, not trying to be unkind about it. I'm not going to say go read the whole UDO and figure it out, but just giving them the appropriate section, and then they can take it to their attorney to interpret.
Firm but professional.
Yep.
Okay, we'll defer the salt purchases. Sullivan's activity we talked about. 26 and 27 trees in the right of way and sidewalks. Hopefully Chad and I can talk about a little bit later this week. Beyond that, I don't see any other items that we need to discuss. Does anybody have any other comments, questions, or concerns?
I did have somebody that came up to me, one of the community members, and asked what it would take to get a stop sign on the corner of Westfield and Soper. I don't know, is that this committee or is that a police committee?
Cost you several $100,000. Westfield, well,
I will bring up, I think it's already run through committee and was denied.
yeah, that came up before, and we basically asked the police department to monitor that activity. I don't think with the state laws and all that other stuff, there's not sufficient traffic on there to probably justify that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that did come up here 2-3 months ago, and we asked the police department to monitor that area a little bit more closely for traffic speed and everything else. So, maybe we can try to get an update from the chief and just see whether they made any notices or anything.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I'll be seeing him tomorrow morning. I'll go ahead and ask him that.
Thank you, Stan. Okay, our typical first Monday of the month is going to be Labor Day, so obviously that's not going to work for us. Actually, okay, help me understand. The first Monday, but if the Monday is a holiday, that means the board meeting will be the 14th of September then, right?
Well, the
Even
board
on the-
meeting, it's always the second, they changed it, did they not? So it's always the second Monday, no more the first Monday after the first Tuesday.
Okay, yes, I remember. So that's the 14th. So that would still put the Public Works on the 7th, which is Labor Day, which we will not be doing. Given the option, would most prefer to have it sometime like Tuesday the 8th? Any conflicts if anybody knows that might create there?
I currently have a cross-country meet, but every day depends on if we're going to even be allowed outside. So right now I'm busy, but I might be free later.
Is that every day during the week or just on Tuesdays, or what's your schedule look like throughout that week based on what you know today?
I would have practice until 4:30s, but on Tuesday specifically is a meet.
Okay.
So I could miss practice. If we have enough coaches, I can miss practice if need be, but the meet's a little bigger.
Does anybody else have, how about if we went with Wednesday the 9th? Does anybody know of that to be a conflict with anything? And your practice goes till 4:30?
That is correct.
Stan, how would 5 o'clock on Wednesday the 9th work for you?
That'll be fine.
Okay, why don't we plan on that? We'll go Wednesday the 9th at 5 o'clock. Okay. And I guess I don't know, that's assuming we go with a standalone meeting. If we're going back and cycling into the committee of the whole, then that may be adjusted, but we'll plan on that unless we hear otherwise. So without that, at 5:13, I will accept the motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
We didn't get underneath our hour like we did the last two, but I'll take an hour and 13 minutes. I can live with that, so. Everybody have a good evening, and Chad, I'll catch up with you on
You too.
a time.
Hey,
All right, you
Mike,
guys do the same.
Yes, Alex.
Kelly and I,
One
we're
second here.
looking at the schedule